Steaming in the garden on a rainy afternoon, changing the injector for a new one and testing the modification that I made to the water gauge to see if it works. It's a beautiful day today, 3rd of November 2020, so it's an ideal opportunity to first of all change this old injector for a new one. The injector that was fitted to the engine was a Jubilee Fittings number 8 vertical injector. I'm going to replace it with another Jubilee Fittings number 8 vertical injector. So what can go wrong with a live steam injector? Well, from my experience of the Jubilee Fittings type, very little. Excess limescale from the water is usually one of the problems. But a while back I put this in my acid bath for 24 hours, so I really do doubt if there's any limescale left inside it. But I've nothing to lose, I changed it anyway, and I'll keep the other one as a spare. As I mentioned, this is a Jubilee Fittings number 8 vertical injector, and it was made by David English at Jubilee Fittings. David English is the son of Don English, and they're both friends of mine. With my immense body weight and strength combination, it was fairly easy to push the engine out of the garage. I don't know how much this thing weighs, but it really does feel very heavy. One of the modifications I'm also testing is the water gauge. The water gauge has been problematic from the beginning. Normally, I fill the boiler with a hose pipe on the blowdown valve until the boiler is half full of water. And as you can clearly see on the water gauge, there is half a glass of water showing. Nothing new here, this is the way I've always done it. The problem was, as the water expanded in the boiler as it got hot, very slowly the water level in the water gauge went right to the top of the glass and stayed there. Then as I ran the engine, the water level showing in the water gauge never dropped. At first I thought, well, it must be the crankshaft driven pump pumping all the time. But no, it wasn't that. Initially, the top part of the water gauge was blocked with limescale, so I used a very small drill to drill that out. But it still didn't work. So I drilled out the waterways top and bottom on the gauge using a 3mm diameter twist drill. And today I'll find out if that was successful. The other modifications I've made to the engine since I last videoed it are very subtle. For instance, I've put handles on both the shovel and the rake. It makes them both much easier to grip and they look better. I'm going to describe the firing process. First of all, of course, you need a small shovel and a suitable container, and this is on the ground at the right hand side of the engine. Next, I'm using some of this lumpwood charcoal, so I'm putting quite a lot into the container because I do intend to steam this more than once. I do have some ordinary kindling wood, and this works fine, but it's just a bit smoky and smelly. I'm also using some of this stuff. This is paraffin. And in this clip, I'm soaking the charcoal in this paraffin. Not all of it, just sufficient to make it wet. When I use kindling, it's very difficult to put the kindling into the firebox. I normally use a long piece of brass tube that fits in the firehole door, and I push the kindling down the tube into the firebox. As you can see, the charcoal is now well ablaze, and then it started to rain. I've added some electronic water to this clip to simulate it running down my glasses. It was spitting with rain on and off for most of the afternoon, but I wasn't bothered about that. It was more important to test the traction engine, or should I say, play with it. This is encouraging. The fire's been going for a while, the boiler's getting hot, but unlike previous steamings, the water has not gone right to the top of the gauge. I've put plenty of coal on the fire, and as you can see, the fire looks okay. I'm still not sure which is the best coal to use. In the days when I used to obsessively run railway locomotives, I used Welsh steam coal. After a while, when I pull the whistle chain, steam starts to come out of the whistle. The noise you can hear is the electric blower. But now I've removed that, and I'm opening the steam blower instead. There's not much pressure, in fact nothing's showing on the gauge. Traction engines seem to be very different to railway locomotives. I mean, the fire's okay, but the coal doesn't get white hot like the fire in a model steam locomotive. There's still no pressure showing on the gauge, but there is some steam inside the boiler. I've opened the cylinder drain cocks, and here I'm rotating the flywheel just to clear any condensate, and to my surprise it just goes. I don't know where the steam's coming from, it's very low pressure. With the extra blast from the cylinder going up the chimney, The steam raising soon improves. I'm running the engine in reverse at the moment, but it's not going fast enough to energise the generator yet. Really, I'm just playing with it, because we're all big boys and these are big boys' toys. The valve timing in reverse is slightly retarded. The valve timing in forward is not slightly retarded, it's actually quite advanced, but the engine runs better this way. This I think is intentional. There's only £30 per square inch on the clock. I'll stop talking so you can hear the sound it's making. Now, with £40 per square inch showing on the pressure gauge, it's time to test the injector. The procedure is as follows. Open the water valve first to let cooling water through the injector, because injectors do not work very well when they're hot. As you open the steam valve, first of all you see a lot more water coming out of the overflow. And as you carefully start to close the water valve very slowly, this happens. But if you close the water valve too much, this happens. Then you have to start the sequence all over again, starting with cold water. The pressure is now £50 per square inch. The whistle's still a bit quiet though at 50 psi, it'll be better as the pressure rises. Because there's so much more to see from the driver's point of view with the traction engine than with the railway locomotive, I'm forgetting to shovel more coal into the firebox. This time I'm going to operate the injector properly. Turn the water on first, followed by the steam, and then slowly close the water valve. And when the water stops running from the overflow, it's going into the boiler. The pressure's still low, and this injector really does pump a lot of water into the boiler, so now it's even lower. This is a nice shot of the engine, and as you can see, the light bulbs are all currently lit. They're not very bright, but then again, it is the middle of the day. These are 12 volt 5 watt car bulbs, and when they're glowing they have a nice look, a very period look. I've decided to remove the chimney extension because it's not needed. My driving position is much lower than it used to be on this traction engine. So even without the chimney extension, the steam and smoke should go over my head. I think I will get a spark arrestor though. The first thing I noticed when I took the little extension piece out of the chimney was the engine's exhaust sounded very much better. This clip, along with the sound, is running in slow motion. The injector was successful and the water gauge was successful, so now I will be able to take it on the road. 2 independent ways of feeding water into the boiler is essential. After about 3 hours in steam, I dropped the fire, and as you can see from the coal that fell into the ashpan from the top of the fire grate, not all of it burnt very well. I need to find out what's the best coal to use. Here's the grate, still in very good condition, so the fire's not getting too hot. Once the pressure had dropped to around £30 per square inch, I opened the blowdown valve underneath the engine. It's always important to blow down the boiler to get rid of any residue. The blowdown takes quite a while. This is quite a big boiler. Eventually the amount of steam coming from the blowdown valve gets less and less, then it stops. And that's about it. Stay healthy, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.